So we'll be studying matters in our surroundings. Now to come to a clear-cut picture, what is matter? What is matter? Matter is something that occupies space and have mass. So it should be something that is occupying, but doesn't everything is matter? Everything is matter. The air we breathe, the water we drink, our body is made up of matter. The smartphone that you are using is made up of matter. The paper, the book, the pen, everything is matter. Everything is chemistry. And the first chapter of class 9th, I know that I'm teaching kids from 6 to 8, but right now currently I have a class 9 book. I'm sorry, but I think this is there in class 8 as well. So whatever you see in the environment, everything, the air we breathe, the mobile you work on, your body, water, everything is matter because it occupies space and has a mass. Probably vacuum is the only exception, but we will come into that. So matter was always defined, and in India it comes under Pancha Tattva: air, earth, fire, sky and water. Although the sky in Indian science is not sky, it's a space only, but the system is not quite outdated. We'll have a change in the syllabus, I hope so. But anyway, the thing, what does matter have? Matter has something called particles. The particles are made up of matter. So if you were to divide matter, it would have continuous, may not be constant, may be invariable, but particles in it. So the small particles make up matter. And how do you differentiate whether this is made up of matter, right? So when you are going to take a beaker complete of water, the water inside the beaker is matter, and when you are going to mix it with sugar, you see that after mixing, this sugar is kind of missing from the water. Where did it go? So the water particles and the sugar particles interacted with each other, forming it did not form exactly a separate solution, because still sugar could be separated from water in a normal process, and that's why the particles, the space in between the particles of water was occupied by sugar. That's why sugar could dissolve in water. There might be n number of liquids that sugar can't dissolve unless it is in a temperature. Even in water in solid state, it can't dissolve because the space in between particles in water in solid state, it's much less. Although ice is dense, the space in between particles is much less than when it is in liquid state. So temperature matters. Substance dissolve in any liquid, especially a liquid, only at a certain temperature. It doesn't dissolve at some temperature. So you have to note that when water is in ice stage, it doesn't dissolve because obviously it's solid, but otherwise also liquids only dissolve at a certain temperature. So I have already mentioned to you that particles have space in between them. That's why the space in between water particles were occupied by sugar particles. And not just that, the particles are in continuous wave of motion. So if you have a glass of water, the water is in continuous wave of motion inside the breaker, and it possesses an energy called kinetic energy. The kinetic energy is the moving energy, and the potential energy is the stored energy, which you will learn in physics. So as I told you about the temperature thing, when the temperature rises, the kinetic energy rises, and so does the particles move. And there are two types, diffusion, and that happens by heating. The water dissolving with sugar is also of the same. So it differs in different kinds of matter. Now when it comes to states of matter, now states of matter are based upon the particles arrangement, how the particles are arranged. For example, in H2O, we have 2 hydrogens for each oxygen, and the energy of the particles, that is according to the temperature, the kinetic energy of the particles, and the distance between particles. You see, when you are pouring water, it goes down fast. When you pour honey down, does it go fast? Right? So there is a difference between water and honey because of the distance between particles. In water and ice also, the distance between particles can be seen changed. So there are mainly 3 states, but if you were gonna study further, there are 5 states, but we'll go through the basic: the solid state, the liquid state, and the gaseous state. So that is when an ice in water in the ice form is in the solid state, and when it is melting, it is in the liquid state. When you heat the ice, when it melts, you see the vapors going up, or when you boil the water, you see the vapors going up, and the vapors are the gaseous state. The most of kinetic energy is in the gaseous state, and the most of diffusion. Now diffusion and dissolution, diffusion is irrespective of the state of particles, but dissolution only happens in liquid. That's the only difference between diffusion and dissolution. Both are mixing only, but dissolution is more technical term towards liquid. So the gaseous state is in which the kinetic particles are the maximum. So in a solid state, it does have a definite shape. Alright, it has a definite shape. It can't break loose, and it has fixed volume. So even though each grain may have different volumes, the grain in itself, a rice grain in itself, is solid. And negligible compressibility. Negligible compressibility is because it has less kinetic energy. You can't make ice smaller than it is. You can compress water. You can compress water vapor, but you can't compress ice because it is the maximum compressed, and that's why negligible compressibility, that is equal to maximum compressed. So interparticle, these are smallest. Forces of attraction are interparticles distance are smallest. So as I told you, interparticle distance are smallest. Forces of attraction are stronger because the particles it cannot move, is because one particle is locked to another particle, and that attraction can be seen the highest. But kinetic energy, therefore kinetic energy is less. Forces of constituent particles are closely packed. That is because kinetic energy is less, attraction is more, therefore it happens. High density and do not diffuse. As I told you, it doesn't mix up because it has the highest density. Now when it comes to liquid state, so liquid state, as I told you, it cannot be it is not as free as the gas state. It does not have a fixed shape but have a fixed volume. So that is the difference between gas and liquid. A liquid is a free flow, but the free flow is limited because it has a fixed volume. The air, you can't you can't keep the air or limit it somewhere. That's why there is no tax for air, because you can't collect and keep it somewhere. It doesn't have a fixed volume. It is the most free bird of the three. What are they? Solid, liquid, gas, and gas is the most free of them all. Solids and liquids can diffuse into liquids, but solids can't diffuse in solids or other particles, like the gas or this cannot be diffused in solid, but we can diffuse the other into liquid or whatever it is. The gases from the atmosphere diffuse and dissolve in water. So you know how the marine species live, right? They have lungs as well as they have fins, and the fins take up oxygen which is already diffused in the sea. Now I don't know what is the case with the plastic waste, but we can see the fins only absorb oxygen through the water because the water is diffused with the oxygen. The gases from the atmosphere, oxygen and carbon dioxide, are essential for the survival of every species. It's clearly written aquatic species, but I believe every species. The rate of diffusion of liquids is higher than that of solids, which I told you, kinetic energy is more, although of a fixed volume. Therefore, the rate will be definitely more than solid, but less than gas. Almost incompressible, and density is lower. So density, high density in solid, low density in liquid. Constituent particles are closely packed, not tightly packed, just enough space is there for the free flow. Particles move freely and have a greater space but less than gas particles. An interparticle ion attract a weaker. The attraction between interparticle ions, like that of the solid, is very strong, like handshakes of ex-minister, US ex-minister. Have you seen the handshake? It's very strong. Similarly, the solids particles are attracted very strong, but the liquid is always in a free flow. Now the gaseous state. Now they don't have a fixed shape, they don't have a fixed volume. Interparticle distance are the largest, and therefore the kinetic energy is also the maximum. The kinetic energy is the least in solid, and solid has the highest of density. Density is the least in gas. That's why they dissolve inside water. They don't float above water, right? Or else all aquatic species would have been dead by now. Interparticle forces of attraction are the weakest because they are free birds. They are the ones licensed to go anywhere without anyone's help. They don't give a damn about anyone. Highly compressible. The liquid petroleum gas cylinder, the cylinder that we use, yes, it is highly compressible because the cylinder is only this much. When you remove gas from the cylinder, please don't do that in your home, but when you remove gas from the cylinder, even a very average 12-year-old child can lift the gas. Why is it so? Because gas can be okay, the best example is when you buy Lay's bingo. You'll feel like, oh my god, it's so much of potato chips are there, but when you open it, it's just gas, because gas can be put maximum without an issue. solid, liquid, beyond a point there is a limit because they have a fixed volume, but gas case is not that. Obviously if you put air beyond a point in a balloon, the balloon will break because the balloon in itself is a solid. Do you get that? The balloon has a limit because the balloon is a solid. But the air given inside the balloon is not a solid. That's why balloons break, but you don't see any difference in the air even if a balloon breaks, right? So compressed natural gas, yes, it's used as a fuel. The particles of the aroma of food mixed with the particles of air spread from the kitchen reaches and even further away. That's why it travel fast because the kinetic energy is less, interparticle attraction is less, so therefore it moves in a very far distance. If you remember, if you go to village area, when there is rain there in the earth starts to smell in a freshened way because after the air in the cleansed atmosphere, the smell would rather go very fast, and the fresh earth smell, if you go near, you can feel it. Why does it happen? Because the air is the one with the least interparticle attraction. Interparticle distance are large and the force of attraction are weak. So kinetic energy is the most in gaseous state and the least in solid state. And they move randomly at the highest speed because kinetic energy is the most. The particles hit each other and also the walls of the container. The pressure exerted by the gas is because of the force exerted by gas particles per unit area on the wall of the container. That is in a balloon example. Constituent particles freely move. Interparticle space, diffusion, rigidity. Rigidity is more in solid, less in gaseous state. Kinetic energy, the temperature, collision increases, diffusion. The simple thing is, so when the kinetic energy is more, the temperature is more, and the interparticle attraction forces is less. That is in the gaseous state. The kinetic energy is less, the temperature is less, the interparticle energy are more. That is in liquid and solid state, and the most in solid state. So these are the three matters: gaseous state, liquid state and solid state. And the solid state is the most rigid with the most of attraction and less of kinetic energy, less of moving freely. But if you were to learn in physics, you would know that even every still object also moves, but that is for very, very further studies, that if you are going to take a physics major, otherwise you don't need it. Then the liquid state, it moves freely, it has a flow but within limits because it has a fixed volume. Kinetic energy is more than solid state and the temperature is also to the rise. In gaseous state, the particles are the freest. They have nothing to look because they are free birds. The kinetic energy is more, the temperature is more, the rigidity and the attraction are weak. The weaker in liquid and weakest in gaseous state, and least the interparticle attraction is the maximum in solid. That's it. Bye.